Welcome to the Art of Conversation with Noëlle McAlinden, a series of authentic conversations with fellow artists, friends, and cultural champions from unique arts and cultural settings. Today we reflect on the importance of the Northern Ireland Mental Health Arts Festival for 2023. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Patron Bronagh Gallagher, performer, artist, singer-songwriter, and human rights activist. Together we reflect upon the importance of our creativity, our self-expression, and our mental health and well-being. We explore the importance of challenging the stigma associated with talking about our mental health, the importance of being self-compassionate and compassionate for those who are feeling vulnerable. I'm delighted to welcome you to The Art of Conversation with Noëlle McAlinden, celebrating authentic conversations with fellow artists and friends in unique arts and cultural settings. And today we're celebrating Northern Ireland Mental Health Arts Festival, and we're coming from the Playhouse here in the city of Derry, Londonderry. And I couldn't ask for a better champion, not only of the arts, but of culture in all its forms, but also as our guardian and mentor and champion for mental health and well-being. Bronagh Gallagher, it is just a pleasure. I'm delighted.
Great
to
see you, Noëlle.
You too.
Thank you for having me.
Bronagh, you have so many different titles, and I've got to know you probably better over this last just over 10 years. Yep. It's 10 years since we, the city won the first UK City of Culture, and I remember you were one of the key champions that was very proactive in supporting emerging artists. Yep. I know there were a number of us that were working to try and raise the profile of the importance of the arts, and I remember there was yourself and Paul Casey and John Deary, and you know there was just this appetite and energy, and also the desire to be seen and to celebrate the gifts that this city always had. You know, it didn't need a City of Culture designation to distinguish it as a City of Culture. If I was to ask you how you would describe yourself, how would you describe Bronagh Gallagher?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think I'm an interested person. I'm interested in community, and I've come from a very strong community in the Bog side, but in the bigger picture, a very divided community.
Yes.
And my grandparents initially came from the Fountain area, my great-grandmother, and my other grandmother came from sort of Ballyarnett, so sort of right on the border of Derry, Donegal. So maybe that has something to do with the fact that for myself growing up, who was always sort of steeped in music and art and anything that was coming to the city, the Orchard Gallery being one of the only galleries that were surviving really during the very bad part of the Troubles, and the local musical theatre, which was, you know, very much housed here in the Playhouse. Our parents very much kept us, you know, constantly steeped in whatever art and music they could, and they really tried to protect us from what was going on politically and outside the door, very much outside the door. And I think from that upbringing, I had a sense of community, and I had a sense of artists coming in and out all the time. I remember ballet schools coming and celebrating work here, you know, the Ulster Ballet coming, and that was a big thing for a kid, you know, to see music, you know, should it be, you know, Dickie Rock, to the Drifters, you know, to the Hothouse Flowers, to whoever was coming to the town, we were brought to it. So I think I had a sense, you had a scope and a scale of the city through the arts, and you would meet people from all, you know, sections of the community. When I started sort of going to the Tony O'Donnell drama group, who would also rehearse here, the Oak Grove Theatre group, and then, you know, later on, Susan McMillan from Bangor and Belfast, and Susan's husband moved here to a job in Derry that he was placed in. I think it was in the banking, and in that time in my life, sort of from 14 up to I was about 16, maybe younger actually, it was about 12, I think it was about second year. You very much had a sense of the whole community coming together, and it was through dance and music and arts and children. So when I heard about the City of Culture coming, I was very, very conscious, having a little bit of knowledge of how these exposés kind of work. Sometimes, and having seen and worked in Liverpool when they had their European City of Culture, that the money did not go to bringing in already established artists and bands, that you're not going to pay 60,000 for a band that, you know, yes, will have a following, but might have had a following 20 years ago that are going to come in. And I know that is, you know, that is sometimes what can happen. Yeah. So my concern was, I came back, I was living in London, and I came straight back to Derry, and sort of self-appointed activist in the sense, I mean, that's what activists are, but you know, I wasn't on anybody's payroll, I wasn't in anybody's community group. I just sort of put out ads on Facebook or whatever the platforms were at the time, and got in touch with a few of my cousins, the McLaughlin brothers, who are all musicians. You know, does anybody want to meet up? And that's obviously how we met.
That's right.
And you know, through Mo and that, and different friends of ours that were in the council and in the active groups that were bringing the City of Culture, you know, to life.
Yes.
I just tried to gather as many young people, and not just so young, any age group is welcome, obviously, to have a common language, which was unification through art. And that be it dance, songwriting, poetry, hip hop, sound engineering. You know, through this experience I met Paul Sheeran as well. He's one of the best sound engineers I've ever worked with, and is very celebrated here in the city. So Paul's ended up working with us on all the shows that we do. Through Paul Casey, we met him. Paul, great friend Paul Casey, local musician as well. So, you know, that to me was the main reason why I wanted to get involved, so that when the funding did come in, if we did win the bid, that it was, you know, it was infiltrated into the Bogside, Craigan, Ballymagorty, all the different areas in the Goblin Scale, in the Waterside, so that the city could have money pumped into the community centres to give these people confidence and a backbone to create and do stuff that they wanted, to develop the great language of art.
And also to share it and show it, you know. And I remember part of my role was to get out there and get involved with the key stakeholders, and the key stakeholders for me were the artists and the performers and the educators. And you mentioned there you come from a long history of, you know, thinking of your family connections as well, of being embraced and embracing the arts right across the art forms as well. And I remember we had meetings as well in Sandino's. We went to where the artists were, and then there was an opportunity then to look at, you know, how can our presence be felt, you know. And there was a particular concern, I remember too, from Inner City Trust as well, about, you know, how can we support, you know, artists, local artists showcasing their work. You know, thinking of the visual arts, and we had the London Street Gallery gifted us for a period of time as well. But I remember specifically as well, Bronagh, and I've seen it in you since, you know, and it was that incredible generosity and intergenerational kind of positivity that wasn't skirting over the past, but acknowledging very firmly, we're here to be seen, we're proud of our multiple identities. And you know, I remember going to the concert which was sold out in the Millennium, was the Homecoming one?
Yes, Paul Casey's brainchild, and Paul got together all the local artists in Derry, and it was an amazing moment. It was great.
And this idea that, you know, it was like almost like you know, you're making a statement, you know, that we are here to be heard and appreciated, and very, very visible. And then I also remember too the opportunity we had with Julian Friars, former president of the Royal Ulster Academy, to host an exhibition of his. And we had an opportunity to showcase some of the champions that he had already, you know, the cultural champions across, you know, I suppose the island of Ireland. And I remember saying to him, well, you do realise if you're coming to the City of Culture and you're coming to Derry, Londonderry, legendary, if you like, you're going to have to make sure that you have, you know, pivotal characters that are movers and shakers, and you were one of them.
That's right.
And there was Gay McIntyre, and there was Paul Brady, and Soak, and Soak was just starting off as well. And it was a gorgeous celebration. And I remember Julian saying he couldn't believe, you know, how down to earth you were, and the vibrance, not just of what you wore, but your personality that he captured. Were you happy with that portrait?
Oh, I was absolutely beautiful. It's such a strange thing, isn't it, to see a portrait of yourself, but it was very beautiful. Very beautiful. He's an amazing artist.
And that, I suppose, was a series, you know, that portrait was put together over a series of conversations of getting to know you. So it was almost like a 360 scenario. It wasn't just, you know, a two-dimensional representation of you, because it seemed to have captured your energy and your personality as well. And I suppose that's what the arts can do. You know, you're an advocate not only of artists but also of a lot of very, very important causes. You know, we were talking earlier. You're involved with Royal Hospice.
Yep.
Women's Aid.
Women's Aid, yeah.
You very kindly, again, during lockdown, did a piece as well to promote Ohana Zero Suicide, the context of equipping ourselves with information so that if we meet someone who may be feeling vulnerable, that we reach out, you know, as well. And do you think artists in general are hardwired, or do you think as part of it goes with the territory of being sensitive, of having to be resilient?
Yes, I think because, you know, art essentially, any representation of art, be it in any, you know, through music, through painting, through poetry, sculpture, dance, you know, whatever art form one chooses to express themselves from, it's beginning with an emotional reaction to something, or an emotional understanding and a concept evolving from somebody's take on something. So this is why the arts are so important, because they humanise what people experience and what they're feeling. They give it a human connection, which is your emotion. It's not political. Now, in the other aspect, sadly, what happens in politics so much of the times, it connects with people and raises a different sort of passion and a different sort, a lot of the time, anger. And anger makes people feel powerful, but we can still also achieve power through love and through the arts. And I think when we truly understand and respect the fact that when you give a child or any person of any age the confidence to express themselves, that their opinion and that their ideas matter, you know, you're giving that person an opportunity to have contentment and to have a journey to become an artist, to express themselves. But it does a lot of the time need to be, you know, supporting the emotional system, because not a lot of the time artists are the most confident people. Artists can be extremely insecure, vulnerable, delicate people, coming from maybe damaged backgrounds, coming from dysfunctional family units, that they need to express in a certain way, that there's a quest there to be, you know, in a way sort of embalmed by something, and they find this voice, they find this pain. People talk about soul and where does that come from, and soul doesn't necessarily just mean, you know, Aretha Franklin, who, and why not, the Queen of Soul, you know, or Mahalia Jackson, or, you know, John Coltrane. We're talking about, you know, Seamus Heaney. We're talking people that can actually tap into what soul feels like. It's a very hard thing to describe, but it's the pure truth from somebody's heart coming out. And I think, you know, when we really respect the fact that artists are coming from every walk of life, it's the one language that unifies people. We can go to a gallery anywhere in the world and we can see art. We don't need to understand anything but what this painting is inciting in us, or, you know, triggering us onto something, or thinking, or the emotion that it's, you know, bringing us, or just this, you know, scene that we want to witness or see, or storytelling that we want to see. And also music does that. We don't necessarily have to speak the same language as the person singing, and it's the one, you know, it's the one language that will bring people together in, you know, hopefully always, you know, a gathering of peace. And that's why it's so important, you know. So I think when people are given the opportunity and the support, and that you're managed properly and you don't have the downfalls that a lot of young artists fall into, which is, you know, crooked agents or crooked management or crooked companies, whatever, you know, that you find that way to know that, you know, it's the wealth of yourself, and knowing that, you know, you must protect that art, because it is a gift.
It is a gift as well. And I suppose too, we were talking earlier about the importance of self-expression, and it comes in so many different formats. And I mean, as an artist, I mean, Bronagh, you have so many different talents and so many different contexts in which you perform. You know, you sing, you act, you know, you're a champion, you're an advocate. Have you any one particular aspect that you love best, or are they all like little, part of your extended family that you love them all equally? It's like asking about, you know, what's your favourite child?
What's your favourite child? I love them all. I mean, I do love singing, you know. I think it's sort of because I write my own music, I suppose. You feel, you know, there's a proper sort of, there's a deep connection with your own language and singing that out. You know, so that's a great joy, and obviously I love acting. I'm doing that, you know, a long time now. But I suppose I love knowing that ultimately that, you know, that you might have, you know, without sounding, you know, congratulatory, but that you've helped people. You know, that I feel like if my music or the work that I've done, like my sister and I produced a film here in Derry. Well, Louise produced it and I was involved in the film and acting in it, but we made a film here called Bump Along the Way. And it was very, very important to Louise and I that we had the complete, you know, inclusive city involvement from all the young people. So, you know, it was written by Tess McGowan, you know, from the Bogside, and we shot it in Lisneal College in the Waterside. And we just felt so proud that we had such a great gathering of the whole community together to make such a beautiful, low-budget, multi-award winning film. And that I still meet people now, and that's 5 years later, whose children had never had an interest in film or the arts before, and mainly the families of the kids from Lisneal. And that we've met 6 kids up to this stage now, young adults now, that have all chosen a life in the arts and that have gone to university and they're studying film and stuff like that. So that to me is hugely important, and that makes me feel, you know, that it's worthwhile what you're doing. If you can help, the way I got opportunities from people that were inspiring to me, they cut right into where it matters, and that's giving somebody a different road to what maybe they felt they didn't deserve or they didn't know about. And I think that's where the education of art is so important, you know, because art, you know, it unifies people, because we're all trying to find a language to make life better all the time.
And to make sense of it as well. And you also are a champion too of the lifelong learning, the context of like Derry Strabane, you know, is a learning region along with Dublin and Belfast and Cork and Limerick. And that's a major, you know, accolade as well, because as we often know, the learning doesn't happen exclusively within schools. It happens within our communities, it happens within our homes. And some of the best lessons learnt are often in periods of absolute challenge. You know,
100%.
And you talk there about artists, you know, in the face of adversity, you know, getting an album together or getting an exhibition together, or, you know, channeling or challenging, you know, their art forms. And a part that I hadn't actually thought much about was not having the infrastructure there to support them, that you could believe that you have the best management context or the best promise of the best agent, and that is not necessarily
that can just, you know, can absolutely annihilate young minds, or any mind of any age. I keep saying that, and keep saying young, but I have just such a huge interest in, I suppose, grabbing people when they're young and giving them the opportunity to, you know, not to waste decades of not doing stuff. But obviously any age group is important for giving people the opportunity and, you know, breaks to express themselves as artists. You know, I think nowadays, luckily, the internet has given so many young people an education of how business works as well, and you can study business plans, and you don't necessarily have to sign everything away to companies where you think they're the only answer. You know, there's lots of platforms now where people become successes themselves by uploading YouTube videos or uploading Instagram videos. So luckily, technology's changed for the better in that aspect. But I think confidence is so important in a community, and creating a stable social, political environment for people to express, so that the arts are not the constant, you know, area that's cut. The funding for the arts is the one that's always cut, and then it's the one area that's expected to unite people and bring people together, you know. And artists constantly suffer in that area, you know. So I think that we need it. As much as we need it, it must be supported as well, and not to be expected to be done with no funding and no budgets whatsoever.
Because passion alone, you cannot exist on passion alone.
No.
And I mean, it was very evident in the context that we're talking about, you know, in your role as, you know, as a trailblazer actually as well, and how you have been encouraging, you know, many generations in terms of, you know, we can get out there, we can perform, we can be seen, we can be on a world stage, you know. And I'm reminded as well, Bronagh, when you came and performed as part of from a live arts festival, and then it's film, and you performed as if you were performing to 10,000 people. You know, that gift to be able to perform, to be able to play to the crowd, to be able to read the crowd, you know, is a gift as well. And in your acting, you know, as well, even though you maybe, you know, you're on screen, but you seem to have got it nailed in terms of whether you're playing to a local audience or a global audience, and to be able to be seen as well as somebody who's taken very seriously in the stance that you take for human rights.
I think, I mean, you know, there's the bare knuckle sort of side of it is for me that if you're an entertainer and people have paid to see a show, you must entertain them.
Yes.
You know, it's not like, oh, you're in funny form, or you're not up for it the night, you have a sore throat. You know, get out there and do it. People have paid.
Yes.
They've organised the whole day in order to get to this gig. They might have booked a hotel. They might have, you know, travelled. So I've got that old school kind of thinking about it, and that, you know, we're very privileged to do what we do as well, you know, because a lot of the time people can sort of give up. There's been plenty of times I thought, oh, I haven't worked for ages, or you know, nobody's biting the bullet. I mean, I've run my own band and my own record label since I started.
Yes.
And it wasn't from a want of wanting to maybe be properly signed or managed. It just never worked out that way. So that's why we do what we do. So I just think, you know, it's great, and the best band, you know, you could have, are the boys that I have beside me. They're fantastic. So we love it. We just love gigging.
But it's palpable. But that atmosphere is palpable. You know, anywhere you go actually, and you know, so it's like an extended family. But it's almost as if the audience too become part of that.
Of course,
extended family as well. In terms of lockdown, because I know we were in contact, you know, a wee bit during lockdown. How did you find that as somebody who's normally performing, or how did you find it as a creative spirit?
Well, I actually really made the most of it, because I came back from Dublin. We were due to do a gig at the Sugar Club, and then there was the lockdown announced, so I came home to Derry thinking I'd be home for 2 weeks. The weather was absolutely beautiful, and then it wasn't 2 weeks, obviously it was 2 months, but I wrote a lot. I wrote about 5 songs, and I walked a lot around Derry, Donegal, took loads of photographs, which I've just made into my first book of photographs. And I did loads of yoga, so I had a great time, to be honest, and I enjoyed the sort of, I think I was home maybe for 4 months altogether, just to be near my parents, you know, and to make sure they were okay, and they were, thank God. And then I went back to Dublin in July, and then I had to go back to in September. I had to go back to Manchester to start a job I was doing there. So I kind of made the most of it, to be honest.
Yes.
And I enjoyed the downtime and the not travelling and the not running around. And I love yoga, so if I wasn't doing acting and singing, I'd probably be teaching maybe or doing some sort of yoga.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was a very interesting experience. But I loved the stillness. I loved that. It was great.
And I suppose in order to replenish, you know, ourselves, we need those still times as well.
Yes, very much so.
But without the anxiety, not everybody can you know, to manage that. And I suppose the big thing about the Northern Ireland Mental Health Arts Festival is that, you know, we draw on a range of artists across art forms, across, you know, the island of Ireland and further afield. And I suppose really it's an opportunity to celebrate the importance of arts and to destigmatise, you know, talking about mental health and well-being. And, you know, some people refer to our mental wealth, you know, this idea of it's an investment, you know, to stay well, you know, it's like a muscle that we must energise and nourish. And I suppose, you know, I've learned as well that, you know, it's important not to wait till there's a crisis before you experience art. I mean, you mentioned that your early life experiences in the family, you know, that it was part and parcel of your DNA. But, you know, what advice would you give to somebody setting out, you know, who was maybe feeling vulnerable or overwhelmed or passionate, I suppose, but, you know, you wanted to maybe prepare them for pitfalls or encourage them? What would you say?
I mean, I think, you know, for anybody that's, you know, obviously watching our lovely interview and, you know, involved in any way or has an interest in any way in the arts, you know, be it sewing, be it cooking, be it anything at all that's creativity, and obviously all the mediums that we've mentioned, the singing, the arts, playing music, writing poetry, dance, you know, I think it's understanding where the links happen. And, you know, when you're involved in the arts of any level whatsoever, it takes you out of your own head and your own thinking for just that wee minute. And the cognitive pitfalls that we fall into as human beings, where we have the same, patterns going around the brain at the same time, all the same thoughts. This voice that keeps talking to you that you're no good and that you're a non-achiever and that you're worthless and that you're not pretty enough or you're not talented enough. All these negative voices that go around every human being's head, no matter who they are.
That's right.
No matter who they are.
That's right.
We're all, very vulnerable to this voice. When you take yourself out of your own head for a second and you're into your hands and you're into your writing or you're into somebody else's, thoughts or somebody else's experiences or talent or, their efforts, should we say, and their expression, it just takes you away from that. So it's breaking up those patterns in the head and it raises the serotonin in the head and it basically helps to deplete the cortisol stress levels in the head, which happen at the back of the head, which are very much induced by bad diet, and alcohol will be a very big contributor to that. So I think if you feel vulnerable and you know that your lifestyle is not one that you actually want it to be, the arts and your lifestyle, your day structure are indicative to feeling better. So your diet, your exercise, getting out up in the morning into the sunshine, be it cold or wet or whatever, just get up out into the sun. It's still out there. Walk around, get the vitamin D, the vitamin E, get your body, get your blood flowing, and it changes those patterns in the brain that cause us to have those downfalls. And exercise is vital for me. Yoga is very, very important. Meditation is hugely important. Yes. There's so many brilliant young app companies now that have all these brilliant meditation apps. But to express, even if it's just to write down a few lines, to do a wee bit of painting, to join groups. My mum works here in the Bogside in a brilliant group. I call them the Patchwork Warriors, but it's basically working with material and painting, and it's the most extraordinary work. And people from all walks of life are coming. People that are suffering with their mental health, people that have had an artistic background, or maybe people that were working in education and in the arts in Derry. A lot of friends of mine from my schools, teachers. So what it does is it unifies people. It gives people a confidence, and it takes us out of the big chatty head, and it gets us into your hands and just gives us that wee bit of escape and a wee sense of achievement, and that builds and builds. And just to be compassionate with ourselves, to take it easy with ourselves. Everybody that is walking this planet at some point in their life feel low. Absolutely. Some people more than others. Some people suffer from clinical depression where they have chemical imbalances.
Yes.
But if you challenge yourself and say, I'm worth this and I can do that, being compassionate, it will shift. It'll shift the picture, and things never stay the same. And that's what you've got to keep saying to yourself. But the most important, I really believe, the most important thing is to have respect and love for yourself.
And I've only really, that's really only dawned on me during lockdown, this idea of being self-compassionate first before you can be compassionate for others.
100%.
And I think, this idea we were talking earlier, about having a fascination and a passion for so many different art forms. Yeah. But it's hard work and it's craft. Because you say you show up, you have to, you connect, you participate, all of that takes energy. But the downtime that you have, you need to replenish yourself as well. And that kind of environment that you do that in, if you choose to do it in one of those where you're nurturing yourself, how you live your life or your sleeping pattern or your all of those sort of things can impact on your mental health and well-being. And also too, when you look, there's a healthy level of, I know if I'm working towards an exhibition or something that I'm passionate about, there's an adrenaline rush that's going to take you part of the way, the energy.
Absolutely.
But without making sure that the cogs and the wheels are oiled and the machine is supported, the engine is supported. You cannot sustain it.
No, exactly.
You cannot sustain it. And burnout and our mental, or the fragility of our own mental health can be a very, very dark place. Yes. And I know many of us, like many families, have seen that through friends and colleagues and family members as well. And I know also that you need the dark and the light, as well to grow and develop. And also when you look at the art forms, some would say they're fueled by, emotional losses and emotional gains. So, as you say, it's the one thing that can unify us in terms of appreciating feelings and emotions irrespective of culture, irrespective of upbringing.
Exactly, of course.
You know, sadness and grief and loss can be, you know, represented in a song or a poem. It can be shared, you know, or experienced through a painting, you know.
Yeah.
So the arts play a huge, huge role.
Yeah.
In terms of the you know what you're doing at the minute, Bronagh, how is your week or your day or your month? You know, because I'm so conscious of your songwriting. You know, I'm so conscious as well of your performances and screen time as well. So how is your life now?
Well, I mean, it's always pretty, you know, it's busy in a sense, but I mean, I think that's a quality problem, you know, that you've got very little downtime. But the downtime that I do love writing my songs, and sometimes I just say, right, we're going to the studio this week, whatever we're doing, recording. But you know, I've been lucky enough. I've been doing Brassic for the last 5 years, so that's, you know, 6 months of the year in Manchester. And at the minute, I'm making a film with Joshua Oppenheimer, a documentary maker, but it's a drama musical enterprise.
And this sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's a really interesting project. It really is. Again, about human rights and multinational companies and not respecting ethnic groups and minorities and drilling and mining where they needed in order to access fossil fuel. So, you know, I suppose it's busy, but it's not always been busy. So I really do, you know, quality problem, as I say, tick the busy times with the down times. But, you know, I suppose it's getting the balance between working really hard, where, you know, you might be up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock starts every day, and you might get to bed to, you know, 9 o'clock that night, and that's a long day.
Yes.
And then you're trying to manage the rest of your life as well. So it's hard work, but I love it, and I never take it for granted, Noëlle. I never ever take it for granted. You know, I know how oversaturated this business is, and I know how lucky I am to be working, but as I say, I do know the times where the phone wasn't ringing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So in those times, that's when you must get into your exercise and get into your own work and do your own writing and do your own performing at any level. Because if you are a performer and that's where you're, you know, that's your passion, you know, you need to be doing that. It's when you can't be gigging and you can't be performing, then you start to get low or depressed, you know. So, and I think lockdown was massively challenging for people in that respect, and then the financial implications of that as well, which were massive, you know. So, but I do think I'm a great believer in the, you know, in some of the Buddhist, you know, philosophies, and one of the great ones is you're the one you're waiting for. And I think it's easy to say these things, but actually when you break them down, you just think, oh, actually, you know, because a lot of the time people are waiting for somebody to come in and dig them out of a hole, but it actually has to come from you. You're the one you're waiting for.
Reach out rather than reach in, you know, as well. And I think the other thing as well too, when you're talking there about, you know, the down times or times when you're maybe not as busy, often the nuggets of songs or paintings or performances or indeed films come from life experience many years. You know, you're talking about your sister, you're talking about your sister, you know, success and you know, ideas that you would have had as well. And you know, when you look at it's life experiences. But if you're not astute to experience life, well then they pass you by. You know. I love what you were saying about, you know, what was the phrase again? Show up for yourself, or you're waiting for your. What was it you said?
You're the one you're waiting for. It's a Buddhist line. I mean, I'm not a practicing Buddhist, but I certainly would have read enough of them to go, you know, some of the lines are just unbelievable. You're the one you're waiting for. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great way to end up.
Well,
Bronagh Gallagher, I think you're the one that we've been waiting for. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting our Northern Ireland Mental Health Arts Festival.
Thank you for having me.
From the city of Derry, London Derry, legendary. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
She fixed her hair real pretty and drove down to the city. She was looking for her man. She took some French perfume from her best friend's room. Now she goes looking for her man.
Thank you for supporting our Northern Ireland Mental Health and Arts Festival. Huge gratitude to Bronagh Gallagher for her support and patronage, to the Playhouse and to the Nerve Centre here in the city of Derry. Continue to support our artists and creative professionals, our arts and cultural organisations. Invest in your own creativity and self-expression, and continue to nurture your own mental health.